At a time when information continues to come at us faster and faster, sometimes you need to hit pause and rewind. NPR's Throughline takes you back in time to the source of the news stories filling your feed. Find NPR's Throughline wherever you get your podcasts.
The city manager of Bloomington says the city may want more out of the sales tax money the city sends to McLean County. The conversation with WGLT's Charlie Schlenker arose from a question whether the city would like to cap the amount of sales tax money sent to the county for mental health programming. City Manager Tim Gleason says the city does not want such a cap and is satisfied with existing services and the level of communication from the county. Gleason says there are underserved areas that money could also support.
We have an increased emphasis or awareness of our homeless population. We have an increased awareness of the migrant situation. Now, should there be an expectation that some of these funds, that we are supplying the county, should they be a part of funding the ultimate solution in both of those additional areas? So when the agreement was first entered into several years ago, that really was not an issue. That was trying to meet the needs, the emotional welfare challenges of the community needs. So, I mean, this is a new component to this. And rather than the city, and I don't want to speak for the town, but rather than the city fund more to the 501c3s that we already fund here, I think we are realizing that the ultimate solution, that's not going to be enough. So where do we find that additional revenue to be able to address this in its permanent form?
One of the identified needs to address the homeless issue in Bloomington Normal is a lack of permanent supportive housing. Are you suggesting that mental health sales tax money be allocated to something like that?
I'm saying it's a possibility. I'm looking at the budget, and I'm looking at these new needs that are out there, and the expectation that we're a part of that solution. I've got to explore all areas of existing revenue to be able to address that need.
Are there other potential areas on homelessness or other human service needs that the county is currently not doing that should be considered as a use for that sales tax money that you're willing to identify now?
I don't think so. I feel the most appropriate answer right now, and it's not to suggest any level of dissatisfaction. I think it's an incomplete conversation that all the players have not had. It's a priority, but it's just an incomplete conversation at this time. Because another part of this, it's not the revenue stream to the county, it's also what are the 501c3s doing to try to look for a permanent solution to this. So we're in this temporary sort of this emergency phase on this issue, and then we're leaving it to them. And we're a part of this conversation, but really we're allowing them to run the lead. Home Sweet Home Ministries, Matt Burgess is doing an excellent job. He really seems to be the person that has emerged as the lead in this conversation. So they're exploring possibilities for this. So once we get to a point that we've got a couple of options to choose from as this long-term solution, that's when the ask comes back to the city and the town of this additional funding request. I know that day is going to come. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe we find grant funding somewhere. But I guess I'm fully preparing for the day that does come. That's going to drive a conversation with the county and other sources of revenue to be able to meet that need in our community.
Are you then calling the homeless situation an emergency?
Oh, I definitely think it is. You truly try to find the opportunity in this, and that's not a half glass full type of answer from Tim. I truly believe this because, something, whether we're talking about the migrant population, but specifically to the homeless population, the thing that I refuse to ever lose sight of, and I feel that I've got a responsibility as city manager, is this is somebody's mom or dad. This is somebody's brother or sister. So there is a human component to this, and definitely want to let the 501c3s do what they do, but I also realize that I've got a part in this, and actually I want to have a part in this solution. So you see all these little pockets of homelessness around the community. They're sort of congregated now in one area. To answer your question about is this an emergency, I think there have been times that it has, but I think that we're sort of breathing a little bit, working towards what that permanent solution is. A central location where that population can get the services that they need. I think that we're working in the right direction.
Is the conversation between the 501c3s, the county, the municipalities, and other actors, other stakeholders, at a point where you have a definite timeline to get to policy decisions?
No definite timeline yet, but it is advancing. We've got so much going on at the city, but this is definitely one of those that's gained a lot of attention, as it should, and we're working towards what those possibilities are. So let me take this down a different path. As we are considering different things, what does zoning allow? And then also exploring under a formalized emergency type of declaration, does that allow for a memorandum of understanding or an intergovernmental agreement where it's sort of a trial period, in any given location versus coming right out and saying that we need this zoning change, and then what's the ramifications of that? That might be a great solution for this topic today, but what does that open the door to, in other areas? So exploring the possibility that we do something under emergency authority that allows for this to be a trial period to see if it solves the issue.
How does current zoning limit where you can put permanent supportive housing or some other tool to address the homeless?
Right now, there's no provisions for permanent housing. When you talk about like tiny homes, pallet homes, stuff like that, there's no provision in our current zoning code that allows for something like that. So what you have is possibly you have an attachment to offerings through a church affiliation that might allow for that, but we know that that's not the cleanest approach. And then also Eastview Church that purchased the old Y property. They've got a mission. That's why they acquired that property, and housing homeless population might not fit the best there. We're exploring other possibilities. It's a larger conversation, but all the parties are together and talking through this.
What has to happen for a formal declaration of emergency, and what does that declaration give you?
Looking at that right now, that's a recent internal conversation, but it's something that the city would adopt. It does give some allowances, and this is one area. It's not dissimilar to, my former community with a disaster declaration. It's not dissimilar to those kinds of emergency powers and authorities that were adopted in a situation like that.
That's Bloomington City Manager Tim Gleason. He spoke with WGLT's Charlie Schlenker about that possible emergency declaration and potential additional services for either migrants or the homeless that could be funded by the portion of the sales tax that goes to McLean County, currently for mental health programs. The newly released McLean County Regional Planning Commission draft Regional Housing Recovery Plan identifies a gap of at least 330 units of permanent supportive housing for the homeless in the Twin Cities.
At a time when information continues to come at us faster and faster, sometimes you need to hit pause and rewind. NPR's Throughline takes you back in time to the source of the news stories filling your feed. Find NPR's Throughline wherever you get your podcasts.